Hi guys and welcome back. As promised, today I'll review a digital to digital converter, or DDC for short, from LAiV Audio. It's called µDDC and it has the same dimensions as you can see with the µDAC, so you can stack them together, but it doesn't mean you can use it only with the µDAC and Harmony DAC. You can use it with any other DAC that has an I2S input. It will cost you $849 or 1,000 euros here locally, and let's try it out with a bunch of DACs. I won't talk too much about its look and build quality. If you already watched my µDAC review, then you should know that this one is pretty much the same. It has the same dimensions, the same build quality. It's carved from a single block of aluminum with just one single plate attached on the bottom. It's sturdy, it looks nice, and it won't occupy lots of desktop space. We no longer have that dot matrix display. It's much stealthier, and if you please, you can hide it behind your DAC or put it on top. It's your call. As you can see, we have several buttons on top, so this lets you select a desired digital input, and we have just one single digital output, which is I2S. On the right we have an on-off button, and that is pretty much it. What's interesting about this one is that we have multiple digital inputs, and all DDCs that I have tried so far had just one single digital input, USB, and multiple digital outputs. But this one is quite different. And I like this part because, in my opinion, I2S is the very best digital connection you can have between a DDC or a digital transport and a DAC. And that's exactly what we have on the µDDC. On its back, as I told you before, we have several digital inputs like USB, I2S, AAC, coaxial, BNC, and just one single I2S output. You can power it with the included 5 volt and 2 amperes power brick, or you can power it with a third-party power brick. Just make sure it to output 5 volts and at least 10 watts. Under its hood, things are quite simple and you don't need an engineering degree to fully understand it, but I won't go full assault mode on you and discuss every chip available. I'll just mention that in very simple terms, it receives digital data from a digital transport such as PC, laptop, smartphone, CD player, hi-fi streamer, offline music player. It cleans up the signal, it reclocks it with high-performance femtosecond clocks. It isolates the noise and outputs a squeaky clean signal to your DAC via I2S output. In the best case scenario, you'll hear a big improvement with your DAC, and in the worst case scenario, you'll hear a small or negligible improvement with your DAC. But one thing is for sure, it will never degrade the sound of your high-end DAC. For that, I'm very sure. Before telling you a lot about the sound and what it brought with free DACs like the µDAC, the Harmony DAC, and my own Rockna Reference Signature DAC, I need to confess that this is like my 10th DDC that I'm testing. The first one I tried around 15 years ago. That was the Hi-Phase from µDAC. Then I tried their second generation. Then I tried the AD Labs Mars, made in Romania, and here. Also 2 others made in Romania, AudioByte, Hydra X, and Hydra Z with the ZPM external power supply. That one was absolutely amazing. Also Denafrabe's Gaia, Musician Theonix, also very great, amazing sounding. And the latest generation, Matrix Audio X SPDIF2 and X SPDIF3. So I believe I'm the right man to test a DDC. I have plenty of experience with these units. I also need to tell you that the very first generation DACs released a very long time ago, something like 30-35 years ago, were not that great at dealing with noise, with timing errors, with jitters. So the very first generation DDCs made a major improvement, a very big one, even those super affordable ones like the Hi-Phase. But as time passed by and people started to make much better DACs that had much better noise suppression mechanics, better clocking system. The impact of a DDC started to be much smaller or just smaller. So I'm not really sure what the impact will have the µDDC on your system, because I'll try today with 3 DACs, with the µDAC, with the Harmony DAC, and with the Rockna Reference Signature, but I'm pretty sure that some things you'll hear right away, and let's talk about that. If you own a high-performance DAC, then you should know that the source that feeds your DAC is equally as important as your DAC. So it can bring your DAC to much higher grounds, sounding better, or vice versa, it can degrade the sound of your DAC. For example, if you are using less than perfect digital transport, such as your laptop, your PC, or your smartphone. A DDC works in a very similar fashion, so you can put it in between your PC and your DAC, and of course it will clean up the signal coming from your PC, it will reclock it and just send a much cleaner signal to your DAC. You can put it basically anywhere, in between your CD transport, so on and so forth, and there are many other use cases. The biggest reason you might invest in such a unit is to unlock the maximum potential of your DAC, and that is what we're trying to do with the µDAC today. I'm playing with it for about 3 days now, I believe. I tried a bunch of HDMI cables, I tried the linear power supply, the Kisses P14, but interestingly that one didn't make an improvement, a small one, like it was the case with the µDAC, so that's already a good thing, because you don't need a different power supply. That's already great. I tried it with 3 DACs, with and without the µDDC in place, and these are my findings. What I'm going to say is that the improvements were definitely there, but not as dramatic or life-changing as some reviewers might told you before on the µDDC, or maybe I'm not trying to hype things to Cloud9 around here. The improvements were definitely there, but not really substantial, to say the least. The improvements were bigger, that is for sure, on the µDAC, much smaller on the Harmony DAC, and pretty much non-existent on the Rockna Reference Signature DAC, and let's talk about them individually. The µDAC is a lovely sounding R2 ladder DAC on its own, and maybe it's not the most technical, the fastest, the tightest, and the cleanest sounding R2 out there, but it's definitely lively sounding. It's very toy tapping in a way. All I want to do is just recline my chair, go with the flow, and have a drink. That's exactly how the µDAC is sounding. However, the µDDC did some very interesting things, and let's talk about them one by one. The first and most important thing that it added, that had a direct impact on many other skills, is a much nicer pace, rhythm, and timing. And there is one thing I learned about DA converters, is that timing dictates more than you can possibly imagine. The resolving abilities of the µDAC are great on its own, but if you put this one via USB to your PC or laptop, then some haze starts appearing in between you and your music. If you are a videographer or photographer, it's like shooting at much higher ISO settings, and some noise starts appearing into your pictures, in your videos. It's a very similar effect, but with the µDDC in place, that haze is completely gone, the veil is lifted. It's like swapping hazy IPA beer that hipsters like nowadays with good old IPA beer that was invented 200 years ago. A much nicer timing somehow arranged every note around me, removing all that blur and all of the haze. The second effect, which was quite strong on the µDAC, that could literally change some preconceptions about the sound of the µDAC, was the soundstage width, was the scale overall of the music, and also the depth. I'd say that the stereo separation improved by around 25%, and overall the scale of the music got a very similar buff. So if I compare the sound of the µDAC together with the µDDC versus the Harmony DAC, I'd say that they are sounding very similar in terms of stereo separation, soundstage, and depth. So yeah, this one is improving these parts quite a lot. This digital handshake between the clocking system of the µDAC and µDDC, which by the way are using absolutely the same clocks, is somehow freeing the sound. It's more effortless sounding. There is simply a little bit more air in between the notes. And this difference can be felt not only with well-mastered music. Actually, I believe the difference is bigger with bad mastered music, like all of the rock that I'm listening, for example. It's much easier to focus on things, and it's not stressing my mind so much in a way. Lets me enjoy the music much easier. It's like I'm listening to a beefier DAC in a way, like its physical form of the DAC is bigger and the sound is bigger as well. I remember listening to Hayride by Brian Bromberg. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly. And at around the 1 minute and 42 second mark, the pace starts ramping up so fast and there are so many musical notes emerging out of nowhere that less impressive converters won't deliver the tightness, the control, the speed, and the perfect decay that this track needs. The µDDC added not only some needed void spaces in between the notes, but also offered a nicer control, a tighter control over the rise, sustain, and decay of the music, like it was supervising every note individually. There was another effect in place, but it was no longer as strong. I observed that it's not changing the tonal balance of the µDAC. This part is very important. So everything that has to do with treble, bass, and mid-range is not changing in terms of intensity. However, I'd say that the upper treble was of a higher quality. I was not getting more detail and more resolution in the upper treble, but everything was a little bit tighter, a bit cleaner sounding. I was getting less grain and less haze and a lot more texture in return, and that was marginally improving the quality of the treble. And the same effects could be heard in the bass, but at a much lesser degree, since it already provides a high quality bass. When I moved to the Harmony DAC, I was surprised to hear that all of these changes that were quite substantial on the µDAC were no longer as life-changing or substantial on the µDAC. So what was a 25% improvement in terms of stereo separation, soundstage, and scale overall was now more like a 15% at best improvement on the Harmony DAC. The soundstage in particular didn't evolve into a different animal. For example, the left-right soundstage was just marginally better, and the same can be said about the focus and sound transparency, which improved as well, but not to the same extent that I have experienced on the µDAC. The only explanation I have is that the Harmony DAC is already using an impressive clocking management and noise suppression, so the µDDC is no longer as appealing. So don't get me wrong, the improvements are definitely there, but not as drastic and not as big as it was the case with the µDAC. There is one thing that Sirba of Is It Worth It reviews mentioned in his µDDC review, which stuck with me because I experienced absolutely the same thing. It's not the moment when you add the µDDC to your system, but the moment when you remove the µDDC from your system, and you have a much harder time to appreciate your music, like the music is no longer clicking into place, the music is no longer magical, and you have a much harder moments to connect with your music. And the only thing you want is just to add back the µDDC and to experience the very best sound that Harmony DAC is capable of. And the last DAC I checked was my Rockna Reference Signature DAC, a DAC that will cost you an arm and a leg and probably a kidney as well, but it's also the very best DAC that I have tried at my place. And what I can say is that with the µDDC in place, I've heard maybe a 2 to 3% improvement at best, and at worst there were no improvements at all. My wife was swapping the cables. This was a double blind test, 6 tracks with the µDDC, 6 tracks without it, 2 times, and I gave up. I couldn't hear a definitive improvement. I believe that the Rockna sounded legendary with it or without it. My conclusion is that the µDDC will hugely improve the sound of the µDAC, it will marginally improve the sound of the Harmony DAC to its very best version, and it will probably not improve that much the sound of uber high-end DACs. But there is one thing that I need to mention, a very important thing. The source and the digital transport that I've used for this review was my Rockna Wave Dream Net. A transport that costs a little over 10,000 US dollars. It's also the best I've heard, the best I've experienced so far. So I'm pretty sure if I would use my PC or laptop to assess the sound of the micro DDC, then the improvements will be much bigger, because the source is exactly as important as the DDC and as your DAC. Nonetheless, I see lots of potential with the micro DDC, especially if you are not using a dedicated transport like a CD player, like a hi-fi streamer. I believe that the benefits of adding the micro DDC into your chain will be substantial, to say the least. This is it. I hope you enjoyed my honesty in this review. Please consider liking and subscribing if you found this video helpful. My next review will be for the Kisses S4 preamplifier, a very natural and tight sounding preamplifier, and that video will drop on next Friday, because I also need to write a long article about it. So see you next Friday and have a really nice weekend.